Hi friends, this is Caitlin. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me today. I'm going to be making a really pretty kind of celebration theme card using the anemone wreath stamp from Simon Says Stamp. I saw this as part of their December release, and which is funny because it doesn't have a coordinating die. But as soon as I saw it, something just clicked and I knew that I wanted it, and it got here super fast with shipping. So I am stamping it onto my Copic Express It paper using my Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink. That's my usual kind of coloring go-to combination. And because it's a fresh stamp, I am going to stamp it a couple times. This one, she's a big girl, and I knew going in that I was going to be trimming off some of the edges. I'm pretty sure if you were going to use like I don't know which one it is. I shouldn't even say that. If you're going to do a 5x7 card, I think it would fit. But for an A2, some of it's definitely going to get chopped. As long as you know that going in, I think it'll be fine. You can see up there in the top left corner my color scheme, my color story that I decided to go with. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to use for this card, so I Googled pretty winter colors, and I found a palette that had similar colors to this that I loved. And so if you're ever feeling stumped, you can just Google the vibe of what you're looking for, and I bet you'll find something to at least get you started. So all of my leaves are going to have a little bit more of a teal undertone to them. I'm going in with my BG 70s, but I'm also going to bring in my BG 99 to bring in some added depth and really create some darkness, because the flowers are also going to have a big range of light to dark, and I thought that I needed it to help kind of balance everything out so nothing looked kind of washed out or forgotten. I really love the amount of depth and variation you can get with a stamp this large, and so I was not going to not use as many colors as possible. I think I still stuck to a 3 or 4 marker scheme for all of these. For this pink flower combination I'm working on, I started out with these very muted RV colors, which I loved, but I just decided they were too gray, and the jump from the medium to the light was just too severe. So I'm going to end up bringing in an RV, I think it's 66, and that is going to help to kind of wake this up. There she is. It's 56 or 66. And that's going to boost that vibrancy, because the like 90s and the higher the number gets on a Copic, the more gray is in it, basically, the less saturated the color is. So a nice way to kind of supplement your stash if you don't have the perfect color is to use your combination that's closest to what you're looking for, and then you can always kind of glaze or bring in an additional color just to kind of change things up or get the end result you're looking for. I don't have all the Copics at this point. I'm not sure I even want all of the Copics, so because I've gotten pretty good at kind of manipulating what I have so that it's the color that I need. So don't be afraid to play around with different color combinations. You are not tied to a certain set just because the number that's on the marker. For all of my petals, I am adding my shadows along those artist drawn lines, and then also anywhere where one petal is overlapping another. And in general, the center of my flower is going to be much darker than the outer part of my petals, and that's just because, the flower would be kind of cupped, and so the center would be lower, less light would get to it. I didn't even look up what an anemone is supposed to look like until I was getting ready to do this voiceover, and I wanted to make sure I could pronounce it correctly. So apparently they're supposed to have like black centers. I didn't know that. So I also think though that this wreath would be amazing for year round. I'm very excited to use it for like Mother's Day and even like wedding cards. But I also think that you could color this bright red and, you know, a true kind of pine green, and you could make this like poinsettia adjacent and it would still give that feeling. So don't, just like I'm suggesting you not be tied down by the number on your markers, I'm suggesting that you just color your flowers whatever makes you happy. They don't have to be scientifically accurate. For these little tiny leaves, I just love how kind of fluttery and small they are compared to the big guys. I colored them with the same color scheme. I'm just being more mindful to use more of the tip of my marker versus, you know, more of the side, so that my dark colors don't take over and I still have room for my highlight. I love that BG70 family so much. They're so beautiful. And then for these kind of smaller flowers, I think these are just the buds of the anemone, but I decided to color them in a different color scheme as if they were a different flower. So again, do what you want to do. But I'm going in with BV20s, which for being lower on the number scale, I still think have much more gray in them. But I love this kind of muted purple that they come out with, or turn up as. It's been a day. It's been a week. In fact, it's been a year. I'm very excited for 2025 to start. So the same thing, I'm keeping all of my shadows where one petal is overlapping the other, and you know, the bottom of the petal is much darker than the top. And just kind of working my way across, because these are so much smaller than the fully open flowers. I was comfortable working on 2 flowers at a time, but for the pink ones, I broke each flower into 2 or 3 sections so that my ink wouldn't dry out and I would have plenty of time to blend my colors. So once everything was colored up, I decided to trim this out with a stitched rectangle die. And like I said, I knew going in that I was going to be losing some of my coloring from either side. And I really wanted to make this kind of look like a wreath sitting on paper versus just something that had been stamped and colored, even though we all know that's what it is, right? So I decided to add a little bit of a drop shadow. Looking back, I kind of wish I had made it even more noticeable, even darker. But what I ended up with works for me, and I went with W3, W1, and W00, just blending out those edges. And instead of working in a circle, I did the underside of all of my flowers. So I did the underside of that upper kind of arc, and then I jumped down and just did the bottom that's closest to the edge of the paper. I also really wanted to break up all of this white space. So I'm going in with a medium and the lightest marker from each color combination and kind of adding these little splotches, these little blobs, and then just adding little dots of color around them. So it looks like kind of very controlled splatter. I would have been way too scared to actually add real splatter at this point, but I know there are some brave people out there like Amy R who would have just gone for it. I love her so much. I also decided to add little black dots with a Copic marker for the same reason. I could not bring myself to add black actual splatter to this. It just wasn't the night. You know, sometimes you're feeling really adventurous and sometimes you're looking for calm comfort. And tonight was a calm comfort coloring night. For my background panel and my sentiment, I'm going to be bringing in some brownstone cardstock from Pink and Maine, and also this Cheers sentiment die that's new, and it's so beautiful. I love this very dainty font. So I cut 3 layers of the Cheers out of that brownstone to tie in with that backer panel that I created. And I just really love how the tan kind of warms everything up, where originally I was thinking I was going to go with a gray, but that made everything very somber. Like everything looked kind of cold and not in the way that I was hoping for. I wanted this to have like a winter feel, but it made it too cold. So I really liked how the tan kind of brightened things up, or like warmed things up. Once I stacked my 3 layers of tan cardstock, I'm going in with that white layer on top, and I'm going to just barely offset it. There's not a lot of wiggle room here, so you can't really go too crazy offsetting, but when I hold it up to that white cardstock panel, you can definitely see it makes it pop and is super legible. And I really liked the idea of having that white sentiment with that white background, but still being able to see it really well. So once I kind of fiddled with getting my panels lined up correctly, I am going to end up going back in with those same markers that I used before on the outer splotches to add some inner dots and blobs and splotches. I tried to keep the colors coordinated to the area that they were used. So like that purple, I only put in that one area on that inner part because there aren't other blue flowers in the inner section. I wanted it to kind of look like, you know, these had been painted instead of colored, and a little bit just kind of got messily on the sides. I don't know. I love this look of like, it doesn't look like watercolor, I know that, but it's almost like a nod in my mind to watercolor, and I really one day want to watercolor this stamp set because I just know it's going to be beautiful, and there's so much space on those petals that I feel like I will be able to do it without getting overwhelmed. So in the future, keep an eye out for that. It's probably going to be a video in the next month or two. Speaking of new videos, I will have a video out later this month going over all of my analytics for social media and for YouTube, going over, you know, anything I'm monetized on. I like to share and talk about what I've made, how much I've grown. I know as a creator, I've been looking for that kind of content since I started. And so I love being able to kind of give my perspective to the world. I apologize now for using an X-Acto knife to do this embellishment additions. In the future, I won't do that. I learned my lesson. I was like so scared editing this, even though I knew I was completely fine and nothing bad happened. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for being with me on this crazy wild ride that was 2024. I cannot wait to see what 2025 brings. Please subscribe if you haven't already so you can come hang out with me more often. And I will talk to you guys super soon. Until next time, happy crafting.